The day the aliens arrived changed everything. Their massive ships appeared suddenly, hovering over major cities across Earth. They came without warning, their vessels blocking out the sun like metal clouds. Dr. Alan Wright watched the news footage. From his laboratory at the Advanced Defense Research Center, his coffee grew cold as he stared at the screen, forgetting to drink it. Unlike many of his colleagues who panicked, Alan felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. "They're requesting to speak with world leaders," said Lisa Parker, his research assistant. Her voice trembled slightly. "The president is assembling a team of experts." 3 hours later, Alan found himself in a heavily guarded conference room beneath the Pentagon. He was surprised to be included among the diplomats, military generals, and top scientists gathered there. "Dr. Wright," General Scott nodded at him. "Your work on quantum field theory might be relevant here. We need to understand their technology." The room fell silent as the screens lit up, showing the alien delegation for the first time. They called themselves the Galactic HFY. Their ambassador, Voxthar, had bluish skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His eyes were large and dark, set in a face that looked almost human except for the ridges along his hairless skull. "People of Earth." Voxthar spoke perfect English, his voice deep and smooth. "We represent a civilization that spans over 3,000 star systems. We have come to evaluate your world for potential membership in our collective." The president stepped forward. "We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization. Earth would be interested in cultural and technological exchange." Voxthar's lips curled into what might have been a smile. "Technological exchange? That assumes you have technology worth sharing." Over the next 3 days, Earth's representatives presented their most advanced achievements. They showed the aliens their newest spacecraft, capable of reaching Mars in weeks instead of months. They demonstrated quantum computers, fusion reactors in development, and medical breakthroughs. With each presentation, the aliens became more openly dismissive. "Your fastest ships would be considered emergency lifeboats in our society," said Commander Krill, the military advisor to Voxthar. He laughed, a harsh sound that made Alan's skin crawl. "And these weapons? We haven't used projectile-based systems for millennia." When Earth's team unveiled their pride, a prototype plasma-based defense system, Voxthar actually turned to his assistants and made a comment in their language that caused them all to laugh. "Is something funny, Ambassador?" asked General Scott, his face reddening. "Forgive me," Voxthar said, not sounding sorry at all. "It's just that children in our society build more advanced systems as science projects." Alan sat quietly during these exchanges, observing more than speaking. While everyone else focused on the aliens' mockery, he noticed something else. When they activated their personal shields for demonstration, there was a split-second fluctuation in the energy pattern. It happened each time, a brief harmonic distortion before the shield stabilized. On the 4th day, the aliens revealed their true purpose. "The hegemony has evaluated Earth and found it acceptable for integration," Voxthar announced to the assembled world leaders. "You will be granted vassal status with the opportunity to advance under our guidance over the next several centuries." "And if we decline?" asked the president. The alien ambassador's expression hardened. "That would be unfortunate. Our fleet, currently positioned beyond your Mars, would be forced to demonstrate why no civilization has ever declined our offer twice." The room erupted in outrage. Security officials moved closer to the alien delegation. "Please," Voxthar held up his hands. "Violence would be pointless. Our personal shields alone could withstand your most powerful weapons. We offer you civilization. The alternative is extinction." "We request time to consider," the president said firmly. "You have 1 month," Voxthar replied. "We will leave a diplomatic contingent here while our main fleet maintains position. Choose wisely." After the meeting, Alan slipped away from the other scientists who were loudly debating Earth's options. None seemed good. Fighting was suicide. Surrender meant the end of human independence forever. Back in his lab that night, Alan reviewed the recordings he had secretly made of the aliens' shield demonstrations. He slowed down the footage, examining the energy fluctuations frame by frame. "What are you looking at?" Alan jumped. Lisa stood in the doorway looking exhausted. "Something's not right with their shields," he said. "Look at this harmonic pattern." She leaned over his shoulder. "I don't see anything unusual." "That's just it. It should be unusual." Alan pointed to the screen. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but this basic pattern is almost predictable. It's like they've optimized one path of development so completely, they've ignored potential vulnerabilities." Lisa frowned. "Even if that's true, what could we possibly do about it?" Alan didn't answer immediately. His mind was racing ahead to Project Longshot, the experimental system he'd been developing for years. Most of his colleagues considered it theoretical nonsense, a way to disrupt energy fields by creating cascading quantum failures. But if the aliens' shields worked the way he thought they did— "We need to get to the mountain facility," Alan said, already gathering his equipment, "and we can't tell anyone what we're doing. The aliens are probably monitoring all official channels." "Are you serious? This is crazy, Alan. Their ships are bigger than our cities." "Size doesn't matter if their shields fail," Alan replied. "And I think I know how to make that happen." As they left the lab, news reports showed alien ships performing demonstrations over uninhabited areas, vaporizing forests and creating massive craters in desert regions. The message was clear. 2 days later, Alan, Lisa, and a small team including Major Kate Sullivan from Military Intelligence arrived at the secret facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. Kate had convinced her superiors to give Alan access without revealing exactly what he was planning. "You have 2 weeks," Kate told him as they descended in the elevator. "After that, most world governments are leaning toward acceptance of their terms." 2 weeks to save the world," Lisa muttered. "No pressure." The doors opened, revealing a vast underground laboratory filled with equipment that even most government officials didn't know existed. "Welcome to Project Longshot," Alan said. "Let's get to work." As they stepped into the lab, Alan's phone buzzed with a news alert. The hegemony had scheduled a demonstration of power over the Atlantic Ocean for the following day. They were accelerating their timetable. The clock was ticking. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the secret facility hummed with activity. For 5 days straight, Alan and his team had barely slept. Empty coffee cups littered the lab tables while screens displayed complex equations and simulations. "The theory is sound," Alan explained to Major Kate Sullivan as he pointed to the device taking shape on the main workbench. "If we can generate a focused quantum disruption field at exactly the right frequency, we can trigger a cascade failure in their shield systems." Kate frowned. "And you're certain about this weakness you observed?" "As certain as I can be without direct access to their technology," Alan replied. He rubbed his tired eyes. "Their shields are incredibly powerful, but they follow predictable harmonic patterns. It's like they perfected one approach so completely, they never considered alternatives or countermeasures." Greg Daniels, the team's chief engineer, looked up from his work. "It's like building the perfect castle but forgetting to check for tunnels underneath." Lisa brought over the latest test results. "The small-scale prototype is ready for testing." They gathered around a sealed chamber where a small piece of alien material sat, a fragment from a damaged scout ship that Kate had somehow acquired through military channels. No one asked how. "Here goes nothing," Alan said as he activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien material began to vibrate. Its surface shimmered with energy, forming a miniature version of the shields they'd seen the aliens use. Seconds later, the shield flickered and collapsed completely. The room fell silent. "It worked," Lisa whispered. "On a small scale," Alan cautioned. "Scaling up to affect their warships is a completely different challenge." Greg scratched his beard. "We'd need to increase the power output by at least a factor of 10,000. The energy requirements would be massive, and we'd need to get close enough to their ships," Kate added. "Their fleet is positioned beyond Mars." Alan nodded. "One problem at a time. Let's focus on the scaling issue first." As they worked, news from the outside world grew worse. The hegemony's demonstration over the Atlantic had created a tidal wave that damaged coastal cities. No deaths had been reported, but the message was clear. Several smaller nations had already announced their intention to accept the aliens' terms. On day 7, they achieved their first breakthrough. Greg had modified the energy delivery system, allowing them to focus the disruptive field more precisely. This should multiply our effective range by at least a factor of 5, he explained. We can hit them from further away. But the next day brought disaster. During their first full power test, the prototype overloaded. Sparks flew across the lab. Emergency systems kicked in, dousing the area with fire suppressant. 3 days of work gone, Lisa said, looking at the smoking ruins of the device. Alan stared at the damaged components. Not gone. Now we know what doesn't work. Kate received worrying reports from her military contacts. The aliens had begun inspections of Earth's military bases, claiming it was part of the integration process. In reality, they were assessing potential resistance. My sources say half the Joint Chiefs are ready to surrender, Kate told them privately. They don't see any other option. We need more time, Alan insisted. Kate made calls. She arranged for misinformation to be fed to the alien observers. Reports of internal disagreements among Earth's nations, bureaucratic delays, requests for clarification about the terms. Anything to buy more days. On day 12, they completed the second prototype. This version was larger, with multiple redundant systems to prevent another overload. The power consumption is still too high, Greg pointed out. We'd need a small nuclear reactor to run this thing. Then that's what we'll use, Kate replied. The submarine USS Montana is equipped with a compact reactor that could be modified. Alan looked at her in surprise. You can get us that? Let me worry about the resources, Kate said. You focus on making this work. That night, as the others slept, Alan stayed in the lab refining the quantum field equations. Something still bothered him about the design. The theory was solid, but implementation at this scale introduced new variables. Lisa found him asleep at his workstation the next morning, pages of calculations scattered around him. Alan, she shook him gently. Alan, wake up. Kate's back with the components. He blinked awake. I figured it out, he said, pointing to the equations. We were approaching it wrong. Instead of trying to overpower their shields, we need to create a resonance effect, like pushing a swing at exactly the right moment. With renewed purpose, they reconfigured the device based on Alan's insights. The new design required less power but needed much more precise targeting. We'll only get one shot, Alan warned. Greg looked skeptical. And how exactly do we deliver this to their fleet? Our fastest ships would take months to reach Mars. We don't need to go to them, Kate said. They're coming to us. She showed them classified satellite images. The hegemony fleet had begun moving closer to Earth, taking up positions just beyond lunar orbit. They're not waiting for the full month, Kate explained. Intelligence suggests they're planning to accept surrender from individual nations rather than waiting for global consensus. They'll start with the weaker countries and isolate the holdouts. How long do we have? Alan asked. 5 days. Maybe less. They worked through the night, integrating the nuclear power source with their disruption device. By morning, they had something that looked like it might actually work, a cylinder the size of a small car, bristling with antennas and cooling. Their first full test produced a stable disruption field that extended nearly 100 meters. It's working, Lisa exclaimed, but their celebration was cut short by alarms. Security monitors showed armed guards approaching the lab, led by unfamiliar men in suits. We're compromised, Kate said, checking her phone. These aren't our people, Greg looked at the security feed. How did they find us? Alan's heart sank as he spotted a familiar face among the approaching group. Paul Harris, a junior technician who had access to some of their plans. We have a mole, he said grimly. Kate quickly secured the lab doors. The prototype, can it be moved? Greg nodded. It's heavy but mobile. We built it to be transported. Then we need to go. Now, Kate said, drawing her sidearm. There's a cargo elevator to the surface on the west side. We can take my truck. As they hurriedly prepared the device for transport, Alan couldn't help but wonder if they were already too late. The aliens knew about Project Longshot now. The element of surprise was gone. They had the weapon, but time was running out. And somewhere above them, beyond the mountain and the sky, the hegemony fleet was moving into position. Kate drove the truck along winding mountain roads while Alan and the others crouched in the back with the prototype. The device hummed softly, its cooling systems working hard after being hastily disconnected from the lab's power grid. "They're following us," Greg said, peeking through a small window at the back of the truck cab. 2 black SUVs had appeared around the last bend. "Hold on," Kate called, and then swerved sharply onto a narrow dirt road. The truck bounced violently, and Alan grabbed the prototype to keep it from shifting. "Where are we going?" Lisa asked, bracing herself against the wall of the truck. "Backup facility," Kate replied. "Smaller than the main lab, but secure. My team set it up as a contingency plan." They traveled for another hour, the pursuit seemingly lost in the maze of mountain roads. Finally, they arrived at what looked like an abandoned mine entrance. Kate punched a code into a hidden panel and massive doors slid open. Inside, the facility was indeed much smaller, just 3 rooms with basic equipment. But it had power, secure communications, and enough space for their needs. "We can't stay here long," Kate said as they set up the prototype. "If Paul revealed the main facility, he might know about this one too." Alan checked the device for damage. "It seems intact, but we never got to run a full-scale test." "We don't have time for more tests," Kate replied, checking her phone. "My contacts say the hegemony moved up their timetable. They're demanding formal surrender ceremonies within 48 hours. Greg connected the prototype to the facility's power supply. "Even if this works, how do we get it close enough to their ships? They're in orbit." A grim silence fell over the room. Their plan had assumed they would have more time to figure out delivery. "Wait," Lisa said. "What about the diplomatic mission?" Kate frowned. "What diplomatic mission?" "The president is sending a last delegation to the hegemony flagship tomorrow. It was announced while you were arranging the transport for the nuclear power source." Alan's eyes widened. "That's it? If we can get the prototype aboard that diplomatic vessel—" "No way they'd allow it," Greg interrupted. "They scan everything that approaches their ships." "They scan for weapons," Alan corrected. "Our device isn't a weapon in the conventional sense. It doesn't explode or fire projectiles. It creates a specific energy field." Kate nodded slowly. "And they're so convinced of their technological superiority they might not recognize it as a threat." "I need to be on that diplomatic vessel," Alan said. "All of us do," Lisa added. "I can operate the targeting system. Greg needs to manage the power flow, and Alan has to calibrate the field in real time." Kate made a call, speaking quietly to someone she referred to only as Sir. After a tense conversation, she turned back to them. "It's arranged. You're all officially part of the scientific advisory team for the diplomatic mission. The cover is that you're bringing data on Earth's scientific capabilities as a last appeal." The next morning, they transported the prototype, now disguised as scientific equipment, to Andrews Air Force Base. The diplomatic shuttle waited on the tarmac, a sleek white vessel with United Nations insignia. Ambassador Richard Bell, a tall man with silver hair, greeted them coldly. "Major Sullivan explained your role. I don't like last-minute changes, especially ones I don't fully understand." "Thank you for accommodating us, Ambassador," Alan said politely. "We just want to make sure all scientific perspectives are represented." The ambassador nodded stiffly. "Just remember, our mission is diplomatic. We're trying to negotiate better terms, not provoke them." As they boarded the shuttle, Alan noticed Paul Harris standing near a group of hegemony observers across the tarmac. The traitor pointed in their direction, speaking urgently to the aliens. "We've been made," Alan whispered to Kate. "Keep moving," she replied quietly. "Once we're aboard and launched, they can't stop us without causing a diplomatic incident." The shuttle took off 30 minutes later, climbing rapidly through the atmosphere. Through the viewport, Alan watched Earth shrink below them, the blue and white planet so vulnerable. After 2 hours, they approached the hegemony fleet. Alan had seen images before, but nothing prepared him for the reality. Hundreds of massive ships filled the viewport, the smallest dwarfing anything humans had built in space. At the center was the flagship, a vessel the size of Manhattan, gleaming, with alien metals. "Prepare for docking," the pilot announced. All personnel followed diplomatic protocols. As they docked with the flagship, Greg and Lisa made final adjustments to the prototype. It was now configured to look like a data storage system, with its true components hidden inside. "Remember," Alan warned, "we'll only get one chance. The device needs to be within 500 meters of their central shield generator for maximum effect." Ambassador Bell led the delegation into the hegemony ship. They were escorted by alien guards with sleek armor and weapons that seemed to be part of their bodies. The interior of the flagship was vast, with ceilings that soared hundreds of feet high and corridors wide enough for small aircraft. The aliens had clearly designed everything to impress and intimidate. They were brought to a grand chamber where Voxthar waited with his advisors. The ambassador stood on a raised platform, looking down at the humans with barely concealed disdain. "Welcome, Earthlings," he said. "Have you come to deliver your surrender?" Ambassador Bell stepped forward. "We've come to request reconsideration of your terms. Earth wishes to join the galactic community as partners, not servants." Voxthar laughed. "Partners? Your species barely understands the principles that power our smallest vessels. What could you possibly offer as partners?" "Perhaps a fresh perspective," Alan suggested, stepping forward. He nodded to Greg, who activated a hidden switch on the disguised prototype. A soft hum became audible, barely noticeable among the ship's ambient sounds. Voxthar's eyes narrowed. "And what is that device?" "Data storage," Alan replied smoothly. "We've brought comprehensive information on Earth scientific developments for your review." Commander Krell moved closer, examining the device. "This design is unusual. We thought you might appreciate seeing examples of our best technology," Alan said, heart pounding. "Primitive as it may seem to you." Voxthar gestured dismissively. "Your technology does not interest us. We have reviewed enough to know its limitations." As they spoke, Alan watched a subtle indicator on the prototype. The quantum field was building, tuning itself to the harmonic frequency of the hegemony shields. According to their calculations, it would take approximately 5 minutes to reach critical resonance. "Perhaps," Alan continued, trying to keep the aliens distracted, "you could share more about how your shield technology works. We're particularly interested in your harmonic stabilization methods." Krell looked suspicious. "Why do you ask about shields specifically?" Before Alan could answer, alarms began to sound throughout the ship. A subordinate rushed to Voxthar, speaking rapidly in their language. Voxthar's face darkened with rage. "Arrest them! The device is a weapon!" The guards moved forward, just as the prototype reached full power. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a wave of energy pulsed outward from the device. The aliens' personal shields flickered and died. The lights dimmed throughout the chamber. A deep groan echoed through the massive ship as its primary systems began to fail. The trap had been sprung, but now they were caught in the middle of it. Chaos erupted in the grand chamber of the hegemony flagship. The alien guards reached for their weapons, but the devices would not activate. Their armor systems flickered and died. For the first time, fear showed on their faces. "What have you done?" Voxthar demanded, his voice no longer smooth but cracking with rage. Alan stood his ground. "We've created a resonance cascade in your shield harmonics. It's spreading through your connected systems." Ambassador Bell looked just as shocked as the aliens. "Dr. Wright, what is happening?" "We're saving Earth," Alan replied simply. Kate moved, quickly, positioning herself between the human delegation and the stunned aliens. "We need to get back to the shuttle. Now." The humans began backing toward the exit, but Commander Krell lunged forward, grabbing Lisa by the arm. "Stop the device," he ordered. "I can't," she replied truthfully. "The process is self-sustaining now." Greg protected the prototype as they retreated. Around them, the massive ship groaned. Emergency lights flickered on as primary systems failed. The perfect, seamless walls now showed stress lines. "This is madness," Ambassador Bell shouted above. The noise. "You've doomed us all." "No," Alan said firmly. Their life support has redundancies. The ship won't be destroyed, but their weapons, shields, and propulsion are finished. They reached the corridor leading back to the docking bay. Alien crew members ran in all directions, some trying to restore systems, others simply panicking. None paid attention to the small group of humans. The effect is spreading faster than we calculated, Greg observed, checking readings on a small device. It's jumping from ship to ship through their communication networks. Through viewport windows, they could see other hegemony vessels. Their external lights flickered and went dark. The perfect formation broke as ships drifted without power. The whole fleet, Lisa whispered in awe. It's working on the whole fleet. They reached the docking bay to find it in disarray. Emergency. Force fields barely contained the atmosphere as backup systems struggled. Their shuttle remained attached to the docking port. Get aboard, Kate ordered. Their systems are failing, but they could still recover. We need to be gone before they do. As they boarded the shuttle, Alan looked back. Voxthar had followed them, moving with surprising speed for his size. The ambassador's elegant robes were now disheveled, his composure completely gone. You cannot do this, Voxthar shouted. Do you understand what you've done? 3,000 years of hegemony rule ended by primitives? Alan paused at the shuttle door. You should have taken us more seriously. The shuttle detached as the last of the diplomatic team boarded. The pilot, seeing the state of the alien ship, didn't question the sudden departure. They pulled away from the flagship just as its emergency systems began to fail. Will they die? Ambassador Bell asked, his diplomatic training reasserting itself despite his anger. No, Alan assured him. Their ships have mechanical backups for critical life support, but everything that made them powerful is neutralized. As they pulled away, they saw the true scale of what they had done. The entire hegemony fleet, hundreds of massive warships that had threatened Earth, now drifted powerless. The ships that had seemed so imposing were now just metal shells floating in space. My God, the ambassador whispered. You've changed everything. The shuttle's communication system crackled to life. It was the president, her voice tense. Ambassador Bell, we're getting strange readings from the hegemony fleet. All their ships appear to have lost power simultaneously. Do you have any information? The ambassador looked at Alan and his team, then back at the communication screen. Madam President, I believe we have witnessed a miracle. The threat has been neutralized. Earth is safe. The return journey was tense. They had no way of knowing if the hegemony had backup ships or other weapons that might have escaped the effect. Every minute, they expected to see alien vessels in pursuit. None came. As they approached Earth, they could see military vessels moving to new positions. Earth's combined space forces, previously considered laughably inadequate by the aliens, were now taking up defensive positions around the planet. They're sending recovery teams to the alien ships, Kate reported, checking communications. Our military is boarding the vessels. Greg looked concerned. That might not be wise. We don't know if they have secondary systems that could reactivate. It doesn't matter, Alan replied. The quantum disruption will prevent their energy-based technology from functioning for at least several months. By then, we'll have learned enough about their systems to counter any threat. The shuttle landed to a hero's welcome. Military officials, scientists, and government leaders waited on the tarmac. News cameras broadcast the scene worldwide. The team that had saved Earth was about to be revealed. Alan felt uncomfortable with the attention. I didn't do this for fame, he told Lisa as they prepared to disembark. None of us did, she replied. But the world needs heroes right now. As they stepped off the shuttle, the crowd erupted in cheers. The president herself approached, shaking, their hands before the cameras. Dr. Wright, she said when she reached Alan. I'm told you're the mind behind this miracle. The world owes you a debt we can never repay. Alan shook his head. It wasn't just me. This was a team effort. And honestly, the aliens helped us too. Helped you? The president asked, puzzled. Their arrogance was their weakness, Alan explained. They were so convinced of their superiority that they never imagined we could threaten them. They didn't even recognize our device as a weapon because it didn't match their understanding of what a weapon should be. Nearby, a group of military officers escorted a prisoner across the tarmac, Paul Harris, the traitor who had revealed their project to the aliens. "You think you've won," Harris spat as he passed them. "But the hegemony rules thousands of worlds. They'll send more ships." Kate stepped forward. "Maybe. But next time they'll know not to underestimate us." Later that evening, in a secure briefing room, Alan and his team met with military and government leaders. Satellite images showed the hegemony fleet still drifting in Earth orbit, powerless and vulnerable. "What do we do with them?" the Secretary of Defense asked. Alan looked at the images of the once mighty Armada, now at Earth's mercy. "We learn," he said simply. "Their technology is still far beyond ours in many ways, but now we have time to catch up." Outside, crowds celebrated in cities around the world. The news of the hegemony's defeat had spread everywhere. Humanity had faced its greatest threat and survived. And in orbit above them, the mighty galactic empire that had once mocked Earth's technology now floated helpless, defeated by the very primitives they had dismissed. 3 weeks after the defeat of the hegemony fleet, Earth was a changed world. Nations that had fought each other for centuries now worked together. The disabled alien ships orbiting the planet served as a constant reminder of both the threat they had faced and the opportunity that now lay before them. Alan stood at the window of the new International Space Technology Center, watching teams of scientists and engineers shuttle back and forth to the alien vessels. Earth's governments had united to create this agency, pooling resources to study and adapt the alien technology. "They're bringing in the last of the command crew today," Kate said, joining him at the window. She wore a new uniform with international insignia, no longer representing just one nation but all of Earth. "How many survivors?" Alan asked. "About 8,000 across all ships. Most of their crew were in stasis for the journey." Lisa entered the room carrying tablets filled with data. "You need to see this," she said, handing one to Alan. "We've decoded more of their star charts. The hegemony controlled, nearly a quarter of the galaxy." Alan scrolled through the information. "And now those worlds will be wondering what happened to their overlords." Greg joined them, looking exhausted, but excited. "The reverse. Engineering is going better than expected. Their technology is advanced, but the principles are understandable. It's like they followed a single path of development without exploring alternatives. That was their weakness," Alan noted. Perfect mastery of a single approach made them vulnerable to something completely different. The door opened, and Ambassador Bell entered with a delegation of world leaders. The president nodded to Alan and his team. "Dr. Wright, we're ready for the meeting with Voxthar." They moved to a large conference room where the alien ambassador waited. Voxthar looked diminished somehow. Without his technology and fleet, his imposing presence had faded. He sat alone at the massive table, his once elegant robes replaced by simple clothing. "Ambassador," the president began, "we've prepared terms for the hegemony." Voxthar's eyes narrowed. "You prepare terms for us? Have you forgotten the 3,000 worlds under our control?" "We haven't forgotten," the president replied calmly. "But those worlds are very far away, and your fleet is currently disabled. By the time word reaches your empire and they send another force, we will be ready." Alan stepped forward. "We've studied your technology extensively. The quantum disruption device that disabled your fleet has been improved. The next time we won't need to be on your ships to activate it." This was a bluff, but Voxthar couldn't know that. The alien's face showed a mix of anger and resignation. "What are your terms?" The president laid out the conditions. Earth would remain independent. The hegemony would recognize humanity as equals, not subjects. Trade and cultural exchange would be permitted, but no military presence in the solar system. And, the president added, "You will introduce us to the other spacefaring civilizations as partners in a new alliance, not as your conquest." Voxthar stared at them for a long moment. "You understand nothing of galactic politics. The hegemony has maintained order for millennia. There are species out there far more dangerous than us. Then we'll face them together," Alan suggested, "as allies rather than master and slave." After hours of negotiation, Voxthar finally agreed to the terms. He would return with a small contingent to the hegemony homeworld, bearing the new treaty. The rest of his people would remain as guests on Earth until the agreement was ratified. As the meeting concluded, Alan found himself alone with Voxthar for a moment. "I never imagined we could be defeated by primitives," the alien said quietly. "That was your mistake," Alan replied. "You saw our technology and assumed you understood our capabilities. You never considered that we might approach problems differently." Voxthar studied him. "You know, in 3,000 years of expansion, no one has ever defeated a hegemony fleet. Other worlds will hear of this." "Good," Alan said simply. In the months that followed, Earth underwent a technological revolution. The principles behind the alien technology, once understood, accelerated human development by decades. New energy sources, medical treatments, and transportation systems emerged rapidly. But the greatest advances came from unexpected places. Alan's team had been given their own research division, focused not on copying alien technology, but on developing Earth's unique approach to science. The hegemony followed a single path to the stars, Alan explained to a group of new researchers. They perfected energy manipulation through crystalline matrices, but they completely overlooked quantum fields, biological computing, and dozens of other approaches we've been exploring. 6 months after the fleet's defeat, the first truly human starship was ready for testing. The vessel, named Hope, was smaller than the alien craft but incorporated both hegemony technology and Earth innovations. It was designed to reach the nearest star system in weeks rather than years. On launch day, Alan stood with his team watching the countdown. "Hard to believe it's only been half a year," Lisa said, her eyes on the sleek ship. Greg nodded. "We've compressed a century of development into months." "And this is just the beginning," Kate added. "Reports from the outer stations show signals from other alien civilizations. They know something has happened to the hegemony, and they're reaching out." The ship launched in a brilliant flash of light, accelerating at speeds no human vessel had ever achieved. On screens around the world, people watched in awe as humanity took its first true step to the stars. That evening, Alan visited the museum where the prototype, the device that had saved Earth, was now displayed. Next to it, in a case of its own, sat a piece of the hegemony flagship, a reminder of both the threat they had faced and the opportunity it had created. A small group of alien children, refugees from the fleet who had chosen to remain on Earth, stared at the displays with wonder. One of them noticed Alan and approached him. "Are you the one who made the device?" the child asked in careful English. Alan nodded. "Our teachers said your people were too primitive to be a threat," the child continued. "They were wrong. We weren't trying to be a threat," Alan explained gently. "We were just trying to survive." "My parent says Earth technology is strange but interesting," the child said. "Different from how we think." Alan smiled. "That difference saved us. And now, maybe it can help us all build something better together." He left the museum. Alan looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, the Hope was speeding toward another star system. Earth's message to the galaxy was no longer carried by the defeated hegemony, but by humanity itself. The Galactic Empire had mocked Earth's technology, seeing only its limitations. They never imagined that in those differences lay a strength they couldn't comprehend, until one prototype had ended their armada and changed the course of galactic history forever.